Hey, this is Annie.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome to another happy hour. Kind of an unhappy hour, but, you know, it's on the line. It's on the line. We'll say that. As always with these, if you choose to drink, please do so responsibly, or whatever you're doing, do so responsibly. Samantha, what are you sipping on?
Oh, I am still in my teeth are the worst and having teeth procedures are the worst. So water, just straight water, H2O, your favorite.
It is my favorite. The nice chilled water. Oh my gosh, I love it.
I'm missing my bubbles right now a lot, though. I will say that.
Yeah, I understand. And I feel for you, Samantha. I am sipping on, wow. Okay, so first let's do a content warning. This one is kind of an unhappy hour. We're sort of following up on the episode we did about disability check-in, because I just realized a lot of you have written in about that recently, and I wanted to talk about that. And I don't know if I'm like the only person who does this, but it is the anniversary of my dad's death. And every time that comes around, I drink vodka, because that's the last thing we talked about, even though he wasn't a big drinker.
Right.
But he was talking about his experience at a local restaurant that is still there after the Peachtree Road Race, which is an Atlanta tradition. And it was just a funny story, and he shared it with me, and that's the last thing we talked about. But the funny part about this is I forgot that I had bubbled up some of the flavored water that we got and not regular water. So it was a taste I wasn't anticipating. It's not bad, but I was kind of like, what is this flavor?
Yeah.
Yep. But it's nice. It's refreshing. It's very hot here, so it's nice. So yes, I just wanted to I think we should come back and do a whole episode on this. We've talked about it in previous episodes for sure, but it's just, we have heard from a lot of you about it lately. And that's sort of this whole thing about women particularly not being believed in medical settings, whether that is like actually at a hospital or with a doctor or just with other people who aren't that. Because we've gotten some messages about things like menopause or PMS, where some of you have reported very frustratingly that you're basically told live with it. Like, that's too bad. And you telling the doctor or whoever, you know, this is impacting my life. Like, I can't function. And you're telling me there's nothing else you can do and just live with it. And that going on for years, like having to just deal with that for years, sometimes like over 10 years, and just having to fight this fight and being dismissed. And I think that it is telling that we've had multiple emails specifically about these issues that impact more women, or people who can get pregnant around like menopause and PMS, and that being a thing where they're like, no, that's too bad. So sad. And you and I have had that before. We've talked about before, when I first got my period, it was so painful that they sent me to the gynecologist. The first time I went to the gynecologist, I was 15. And I got my period when I was 9. So that was late, like after it started. But the pain was so bad. And they basically were like, you're probably pregnant. I was like, no, I'm not. And then they're like, mm-hmm. And that was sort of the extent of it. They gave me birth control and sent me on my way. And then the birth control didn't work. And that was the end of that. And it just being this thing that like, okay, once a month-ish, that's what you're going to do. And you don't feel comfortable taking it off. I actually specifically remember the first time I ever saw a woman that I worked with send an email that said, I'm having horrible PMS pain. I can't come in. And I was so like, oh, you can do that? I didn't think that was allowed. And so I've been thinking about that and how much we just deal with. But also recently, it seems that we've gotten a lot of book recommendations from you all, especially around endometriosis. And so I was thinking about that too. And I put them on our list. I want to read them. But a lot of their stories are like about endometriosis, but also more largely about this whole thing about women not being believed, about it being expected. You just have to deal with it, not doing like any research about it, and how painful, completely painful it is. And then you like go in and to just be told, well, there's nothing we can do for you, and how demoralizing that is. And again, some of you said you had personally dealt with or had seen someone in your life deal with years of that before you finally got a diagnosis. And then just along with what we were talking about in that disability check-in episode, and you and I were kind of just discussing, I've had a lot of experiences like this too. I've had a lot of going in and just not being believed or being insulted right to my face about how I needed like to lose weight, I wasn't in shape, stuff like that. Oh, well, I felt like you're being emotional right now. And I was like, pretty young kid, but that left a pretty big impression on me that, okay, I can't communicate this without it being dismissed or judged in that way. And that does impact whether or not you go in at all, because we've been discussing our medical issues. And I do feel like if I go in, I have to have like a proof that something is really wrong.
Right.
Or else I just don't want to go.
Right. I mean, I grew up in a home where you don't go to the doctor unless something is bleeding, broken, or you're vomiting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of that kind of mentality for me as well as like and it seemed like a thing of pride too, which is a whole level of like ableism that doesn't make sense anyway. It absolutely did not help you because you can't tell your health. Like my mom almost died because that kind of attitude. She did go. She was one of the ones that we've talked about before. She did finally go because she's like, this is too much. And the first two doctors were like, no, it's fine. It's just stress. And then one doctor was like, oh, wait, you're having jaw pain and you have this? We need to check your heart. And she was like, what? And then it turned out she had a 97% blockage of her main artery, literally the doctors call the widow maker because most people die from that type of blockage. But like her initial response was, I'm not going to the doctor. I'm fine. I'm stressed. To, okay, there is something wrong. And that fact that it took her that long to tell somebody and then people still didn't believe her, like, no, you need to understand most women are most likely not going to go unless absolutely something is bothering them. And whether it's just chronic pain that needs to be managed, that unfortunately people don't take the time to study. And so therefore we don't have a lot of at least maintenance stuff or healthy alternatives because there's not enough research. Most likely. But like that kind of level of the fact that most people, and I will say in our culture and our level of like, nah, we're okay. That whole like, if it's bleeding, cut it off, keep going type of thing, like bandage yourself up and get going. That attitude really is prevalent because a part of our like boomer parents telling us this. And we're like, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. We have to do this. And or like my mother who wasn't believed until something was absolutely wrong and like almost too late, and we're like, hey, why don't you listen? And what's the use of us going in if this is the treatment that we get? Like we talked about my dental experience recently, really it was pushing me away. I'm like, I don't want to go back because of that. Like literally her asking me, do you just not care for your teeth? Instead of being like, well, no, I have an enamel deficiency because as a child, I was malnourished. I don't, thank you.
Right.
Having to explain. And she like kind of backtracked a little bit. She's like, oh, okay. And just moves on. I'm like, did you not just hear yourself? Okay, cool. This is exciting. This is my favorite space.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just have so many memories where that kind of similar, you come in and then are kind of shamed for coming in. Or even feel kind of, I had one experience, I still don't know what to make of this, honestly, but I couldn't move because of anesthetics. And the guy that was like working on me was like, he said something very strange while I couldn't move that was like, you know, you need to, someday some men might try to take advantage of you. You need to be really vigilant about it. And it was just so, I couldn't move. And
Right.
he was
One of
like
your most
telling me
vulnerable
this.
moments.
Like this, I don't know why you're telling me this right now, but you are freaking me out.
Right.
Like,
What are
I
you
feel
about
very
to do?
unsafe.
What have you done? Like, what the hell, man?
It was very scary. And so that's like another, you won't go in. And I had another time where I ended up feeling very vindicated, which is not necessarily a healthy thing. But I went in and I was in such pain, and he was like pressing his elbow down on my stomach to like feel for things. And I was crying. And he was like, just, it's fine. Like, it's fine. And it turned out I had all these cysts. Like, I did have like a lot of pain.
Why was he using an elbow? Like, he can't feel anything with an elbow. That's like taking his foot. What?
I don't know, Samantha. But my dad was there. And it was, I felt so embarrassed because this doctor basically said in front of my dad, like, suck it up. It was just not good. And there's so many experiences like that I've heard from all of you lately. Like, so it's frustrating. It's one of those things that we talk about so much where I'm glad, you know, we're talking about it and we are finding out we're not the only ones and we're connecting over that, but it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be that we're getting so many emails where recently where I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah. You would think that it would get better, but then we talked about the fact that the new open fear is being filmed or taken advantage of during, like, if we are under or something, seeing actual professionals shaming patients by doing TikTok videos about, I'm like, why? Even if you got permission, why are you filming people? Like, I could understand if you were doing for research purposes with other doctors and it is a scientific notion of something and you've gotten written consent, like permission, but to shame people during surgery or make fun of them or like, and they have been caught because the things they do or say and not realizing that they're being recorded. That too, you're like, like there's one thing to be like, please just be professional. Can you keep it professional, please?
Yeah, and no joke, Samantha did not know we were talking about this today. I just kind of brought it out. And we were talking about this organically before we even started. And I remember the very first time I saw all these pictures of doctors like taking pictures with people who were under and making fun of them and all this stuff. And I was like, this is a new concern I didn't know I needed to have. But now I'm even less incentivized to go in.
Like, this makes me want to go in less. And especially, like, there are things that I'm like, I wish I never knew. Like, the doctors talking about, these are the things that the doctors won't tell you. I'm like, please don't tell me. That makes me not want to go in. Like, I want to be safe, but at the same time, now I'm like, shame. Like, before I walk in, I'm like, nah, I know that you think bad of all of us. It doesn't matter what.
Yeah. And another thing I hate and I've had to struggle with, and I talked to my therapist about it, because I have gained weight during the pandemic and I know they weigh you at the beginning. Like, that has held me back too. And my therapist told me there are doctors who you can say, like, I've struggled with this before, please do not do this. And they will.
I went to somebody recently where they were like, that's an option. You don't have to. And then also they're like, I can walk out of the room and you can look. I've had that too. So
interesting.
Yeah, I've had a couple of incidents where like that.
Which is good. And I just didn't even know that was a thing. And that's another part of this that I have been struggling with and that we were also discussing before this is in all of our like reading of books about disability justice, disability rights, and our research we've done on it, there are just so many things where now I look at it in a different way. And one of them is phone calls. Because there's a couple reasons why I don't like phone calls. One of them, I will admit, is I just don't like them. But some of them are like legitimately, I struggle to understand people on phone calls for physical reasons. And I'll find things that will say like, we only do it on phone call because of this. And I'm like, well, not everyone can do that. Not everyone can do that. And just like, I feel like something has opened in me where I'm seeing more and more all of these, but you're not being totally accessible. And I mean, we're a podcast and I know we don't have transcripts. So I just want to be clear, like I understand, but it's just something I'm noticing in more places.
Right.
And trying to be better about my own life. This sounds so small, but for me, I was like, ooh, I did ask someone if we could swap sides so I could hear them better recently. Yeah. I was like, oh, hey. And of course, they were like, yeah.
Quickly. Remind me.
Easy.
Yes, absolutely.
No problem. Cool. But then I did want to say a lot of times when I think of my dad, one of the things I think of is like in his final years is that when he found out he had cancer, the doctor told him, you should have come in earlier. And he came in every year for preventative stuff, like every year. And I'm totally for like preventative care and checking all that stuff. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not. But that's still kind of the same thing because he was like, no, I did. And to kind of turn it back on you like, oh, if you would come in earlier, then we could have caught it.
I feel like that's an etiquette no-no in general when someone has a life-threatening disease. Well, if you'd done this something earlier, you may have... Dude, why would you say that out loud?
It just stuck with me so much because actually my parents, they both do. Like every year they do the physical. If there's anything that comes up, they would go and do it. My mom still does it. And so I just remember hearing that and it was just like another thing where I was like, well, even if I do go in, apparently.
Right. Y'all didn't catch it, so...
Right. And I totally understand. I have a lot of friends in the medical industry. Like I totally understand sometimes you don't get it. You don't catch it. Human body's complicated. But just the way that he like phrased it.
That's such a weird way to do that.
Especially if he has his chart. Right. Like you can see he came.
I really want to like, and again, like you said, we do have friends in the medical profession who are amazing. They are so good. And I wish I could just go to them without them seeing my personal but like, that's just embarrassing in itself. But like, there's also to those who like, this is still a profession. Is there not a level of professionalism that is required? Like, do no harm is part of the motto. Don't you think, telling someone you could be alive if you'd done this as if it's their fault is doing harm? Like, right. No? Does that just being physical? Are you being very, very literal? I don't understand.
Yeah. It just really stuck with me. And I literally think about it every time I think about going to the doctor. So it's just a lot of stuff to wrestle with. And I do want to, we had some of those books that you all have suggested around this on our list already. So I'm excited. / I know I'm going to be angry to read them. But just know that we hear you and we are angry on your behalf and very sorry that this is the state of things. But well, hopefully we'll talk it out. I don't know. Because I know like we did an episode on this very thing I think 5 or 6 years ago, and it seems like it is not improved. It has not improved, but we are here we are here for you, listeners. Well, cheers. Yay. Yes. Thank you for joining, as always. If you would like to reach out to us about any of this stuff, we do appreciate all of you who have taken the time to share the time and vulnerability to share your stories. You can email us at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter or whatever at momstuffpodcast.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Stuff I've Never Told You. We have a TeePublic store. You can check us out there. We have a book and an audiobook that you can pre-order at stuffyoushouldreadbooks.com. Thanks, as always, to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.